The Idiot by Dostoyevsky. My review. This book is one of my two favorite books of all time that I've read. The Idiot and The Iliad by Homer. I've only read The Idiot once, and that was when I was 20 years old, which was 27 years ago. So this review of mine will be a test of how good my memory is. It'll also be a good reflection on what parts of it profoundly affected me. For example, I read Huckleberry Finn once, before I was 20, and I don't remember almost anything about it. So I credit this book with changing my mind. I was at a point in my life at the age of 20 where I thought there was no good in the world, and being a good person doesn't get you anywhere in life, right? So you might as well just treat everybody like garbage. So I was on the road to turning into a piece of garbage human being until I read this book. So this book may have saved my life and others. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've probably ruined a lot of people's lives, but probably less lives because I read this book. So the book is some like 600 pages, and they're not pages with big words. It's sort of big pages. And it begins with a guy on a train headed towards a town. I think it would be St. Petersburg in Russia. And he's sitting on one of those, like, what do you call it? Like, you know, those little rooms in the train? This book was written in like 1850 something. I'm gonna guess 1850. He was on a train with these two other men. Oh wait, first I should say that every book by Dostoevsky usually starts with 100 pages of backstory that really is just like gratuitous and often has nothing to do with the story at all. Like, he'll go on about the parents of somebody and their lives and the whole history of the family. So I'm pretty sure there was probably a lot of preamble before this book gets started. But the book really gets started on the train. So the three men on the train start talking, and they start to introduce themselves. And the one man is his name is Mishkin. That's his last name. I don't know what his first name is. Don't remember. The other guy, his name is Rogozin. The third guy, I don't remember his name. You know, I was going to say it was Lebedev, but I was pretty sure I was wrong, but it is. His name is Lebedev. I looked it up. So basically they talk a lot and a lot and a lot, because Dostoevsky has tons and tons of dialogue. And they figure out that they're all headed towards the same general area, and they know the same general group of people that they're visiting. Now, these three characters are very interesting, and it's revealed during these conversations. Mishkin is extremely honest to a fault. He's the idiot of the story. People think he's an idiot because he's so honest and good-natured. And people at first think he's an idiot and a piece of crap. You know, like he's a fake, he's a phony, he's pretending to be nice, until they realize that he's actually nice, and they fall in love with him. The other character, Rogozin, is very rough, like kind of like a rough, tough guy. The kind of guy who like brags about beating people up. And Rogozin takes an immediate liking to Mishkin. He basically loves him immediately. He's like, you're such a nice guy, holy smokes. And the third guy, Lebedev, is like a kiss ass. Dostoevsky always has this character in every one of his books. He goes by many names, and same with Mishkin. He has many Mishkins in many of his books. He has a lot of Rogozins. The characters represent different, types of people. Mishkin represents the good-natured, honest person. Rogozin represents the brutal, physical kind of person. Lebedev represents the spineless kiss ass, who's always saying things like, "Oh, I'm such an idiot. I know I'm an idiot. I'm so stupid, and I know I'm stupid." And he goes on, and he just pollutes the whole room with all of his like, "Oh, yeah, I'm dumb. I know I'm dumb. I'm so dumb." And like, I'm just the dumbest guy in the room. And he'll just go on and on and on, and just like, would you shut up? Okay, so that's the first crucial part of the book. I'd say I'll divide the book into 4 parts in terms of my review. So that was the first part. Oh, and one thing that gets mentioned during their train ride, Rogozin takes a picture out of a beautiful woman, like the most beautiful woman of all time. And he says he's planning on marrying her and all this. And Mishkin's like, oh my god, she's so gorgeous. She's the most beautiful person. Oh my god. Everybody, that whole town, she's famous for being the hottest chick. And her name is Nastasha Filipovna, and she's one of the main characters of the story. So they get off the train, they go their separate ways, and Mishkin goes to the house of, I had to look it up, the Yapanchins, the Yapanchin family. In the Yapanchin family, the father is like a high-level, general in the army. Like he's a very established, rich guy. And he's got 3 daughters who are all gorgeous, and the hottest one of all is Aglaia. It doesn't really matter why he's going there. He just seems to have mutual acquaintances, and he got a letter from blah, blah, blah. And so the Yapanchin family at first, are skeptical about him. But then they all fall in love with him because he's so nice and honest. Okay, then there's another main character named Ganya. And this character is only interested in money. And he's got the hots for Aglaia because she's the second hottest chick in town after Nastasha Filipovna. So we're probably 1/3 into the book by now. And Dostoyevsky's introduced all the main characters. Oh, I should note one of the coolest things I ever read was in this book. And I think it was when Dostoyevsky was describing and introducing Ganya. And he said, he goes on for 2 pages and he goes, how does an author write a character who's average in every way, right? He goes, it's easy to write somebody who's, crazy or, violent or lustful or, I don't know, hates his mother or something, has issues, or who's like really talented. That's easier. But how do you write somebody who's just average? There's nothing special about him at all. You would think it would be impossible. So Dostoyevsky says, okay, here's how you do it. What is the main characteristic of every average person? Like, what is the most defining feature? What is the one defining feature that every boring, average Joe has in common? Pause if you want to think about it. And he says, finally, the main characteristic of the most average people is that they think they're special. They always have some secret thing that they're doing, some secret plan that's going to put them up above everybody else. So whether it's somebody who buys lottery tickets and thinks, yeah, one day I'm going to get rich from the lottery and then I'll show them. Or whether it's somebody who's working a job and they think, when I get promoted, then I'm going to show everybody. Or whatever, once I get that fancy car, then everybody's going to be amazed. Now, not only is this really helpful advice to any writer that's reading this book, it also Dostoyevsky helps you think the way he thinks. And then you start thinking of interesting thoughts just like he does. Anyways, so basically, during the narrative I've already told you, it's basically revealed that I think Rogozin, well, I know, but I'm just not exactly sure of the order of events. Rogozin and Ganya both want to marry Nastasha Filipovna. Rogozin wants to marry her just because she's the hottest and everybody wants her and he knows it. So he wants her for power, just because she's the hottest. And because he's horny as hell for her. Ganya, though, he wants to marry her because he thinks he's smarter than her. He thinks he's outsmarting everybody. He wants to marry her because he knows she's rich. And he just wants her money. But he's fooling her into thinking that he's in love with her. So part 2, I'm calling it part 2 of the book, is the big dinner, the big party, the big dinner event that's about to happen. It's going to be an event where Nastasha Filipovna shows up. She's invited, and Rogozin's invited, and Ganya's going to be there. Everybody's going to be there that we've been introduced to. And it's really funny because Aglaia, who's the prettiest of the 3 daughters of the Yapanchin family, she mocks and makes fun of Mishkin because he's so honest and she thinks he's an idiot. And she says, You're so nervous all the time. You see that vase over there? You're probably gonna knock that vase over tomorrow during the dinner party because you're so nervous, and it'll just be so embarrassing for you. And Mishkin is basically up all night, worried about how he's going to knock the vase over. Needless to say, the next day at the party, he knocks the vase over accidentally. But that's not the feature of the event. The feature of the event is that Nastasya Filipovna comes in, and she's just the most angry, bitter, vicious person. She hates them all, and she mocks them all. Another uninteresting thing that develops from this scene is that you find out that Mishkin is actually a prince, so he actually comes from wealth. But that really doesn't have anything to do with the story. Anyways, so Rogozin proposes to Nastasya Filipovna, and she tells him what a piece of crap he is, and how she can see right through him, and how he's, a worthless... She just insults everybody. And she insults Ganya, and she goes, she's like, I'm on to you, man. I know you just want money, because that's all you think about. You're a shallow piece of crap. And then she basically tells the prince that he's the most beautiful person she's ever met, because she sees like that, how honest and kind-hearted he is. Anywho, so Nastasya's playing games, like mind games, with Rogozin and Ganya, and she goes... Finally, she's like, Rogozin puts like, $1 million basically in rubles in 1800s Russian time. He gets his big bag of gold, and he goes, if you marry me, Nastasya, I'll give you all this money. And Nastasya says, yeah, whatever. And she goes, I'll tell you what. How about you throw it into the fireplace? So I guess it's not gold, it's like bills. Dollar bills, rubles, and you throw it into the fire. If you throw it into the fire, I'll marry you. Then I'll go off with you. And if Ganya can take it out of the fire, then he can have it. So Rogozin throws it into the fire. He doesn't give a shit. And they're both staring at Ganya and making fun of him and going like, "Look, he's such a greedy piece of crap. He's just gonna grab it right away. What a loser, right? He doesn't even care if it burns his hands." But Ganya has a major character development because he doesn't take the money. Because I think it's like something happened during this event where he had a profound kind of experience where he realized that like all his plans were bullshit and what an average person he really is. And, he's not special, and all his goals were bullshit. So he doesn't take the money. And Nastasya says, I guess I underestimated you. You're a better person than I thought you were. So she runs off with Rogozin, before first telling the prince that, I love you and you're the, nicest person I ever met. Now, the book, I believe, is divided into two parts, and that would be the end of part 1. It's the end of part 2 of my review, though. I'd say the third part I don't remember as much about. So with the part 2 of the book, which is part 3 of my review, I don't remember in such detail. In part 2, Ganya he's become a totally different person. He's just very humble, and he's a lot nicer to everybody. And Nastasya Filipovna keeps running back and forth between Rogozin and Mishkin because she's torn, right? She's a vicious, angry person, but she's got good in her, so she's going back and forth between Rogozin, who's a vile, criminal kind of person, and Mishkin. And that's basically most of what I remember of the second half of the book. And then there's the final scene where Mishkin tracks down Rogozin, and Rogozin is lying there. He's sitting there in his house, and Nastasya's dead body's lying in the corner because he killed her. Because of course he was going to kill her. That's the kind of person he is. And he asks Mishkin to hold his hand, and it's really sad. There's other things that I remember from it, like the when Mishkin, there's a point in the story where he recalls the mock execution that's basically based on what really happened to Dostoevsky in real life, where a bunch of people were. Well, Dostoevsky was. They said he was going to be hanged, and they put him right up to the gallows. Then at the last minute, they told him that it was just a joke. And Mishkin is explaining how he thinks emotional torture is worse than physical. And at the very end, they say that, Mishkin basically becomes comatose, or becomes, loses his mind because of what happened with the dead body of Nastasha and all that. But I choose not to focus on that, because I don't want to think that that's the theme of the book, even though that might be. That the very theme of the book is that you can't be nice to everybody. I don't want to think that, though, because that's not the effect it had on me. And when I say it's one of my 2 favorite books that I've ever read, it's mainly because of the nostalgia reasons, because I read it at a time where it caused the turning point in my life. So it's probably not Dostoevsky's best book. In the same way, like the original Superman, it'll always be one of my favorite movies, not because it's the greatest movie ever made, but because I was a 6-year-old who watched it 100 times. I'm briefly going to read the ChatGTP synopsis, just to see if I missed anything important. However, it doesn't really matter, because the important parts to me are what's important as far as I'm concerned, and as far as this review is concerned. Okay, Mishkin suffers epilepsy, which was not hardly worth mentioning. Dostoevsky had epilepsy, so he writes quite a bit about epilepsy. Why can't I say it? And the last sentence, I guess, sums up the part that doesn't really matter to me. By the end of the novel, Mishkin, having failed in his attempt to bring goodness and redemption to a corrupt world, descends into madness and is sent back to Switzerland, his noble ideals shattered. So now listen, if you liked this, like it, and comment if you want me to make more Dostoevsky synopsises of these kinds, and let me know what you thought of the book, or if you have any interest in reading it. Okay, bye.